Hello, and welcome to Scrum Study. In the last video, we discussed the review and retrospect phase, and today we will be taking up another phase in Scrum called the release. So let's get started with it. The release phase emphasizes delivering the accepted deliverables to the customer and identifying, documenting, and internalizing the lessons learned during the project. The term product in the SBOC guide may refer to a product, service, or other deliverable. Scrum can be applied effectively to any project in any industry, from small projects or teams with as few as 6 members to large, complex projects with up to several hundred team members. Let's see the release phase processes, which are as follows. The first process is ship deliverables. In this process, accepted deliverables are delivered or transitioned to the relevant stakeholders. A formal working deliverables agreement documents the successful completion of the sprint. The second process is retrospect project. In this process, which completes the project, organizational stakeholders and Scrum core team members assemble to retrospect the project and identify, document, and internalize the lessons learned. Often, these lessons lead to the documentation of agreed actionable items to be implemented in future projects. We have a diagram here to show the mandatory inputs, tools, and outputs for processes in the release phase. So that's it. In the introductory video on the release phase, we could understand what release as a phase in Scrum means and the necessary processes involved in it. It is time to learn this phase in detail with the processes involved. Ship deliverables is first process carried out. So as to understand the process, we need to know the inputs, tools, and outputs involved. Let's learn them one by one. Product owner is the first source of input. The product owner is the person responsible for achieving maximum business value for the project. He or she is also responsible for articulating customer requirements and maintaining business justification for the project. The product owner represents the voice of the customer. Each Scrum team will have a designated product owner. A small project may only have one product owner, whereas larger projects may have several. These product owners are responsible for managing their sections of the prioritized product backlog. Product owners write the user stories and manage and groom the prioritized product backlog. Next source of input is the stakeholder. Stakeholder, which is a collective term that includes customers, users, and sponsors, frequently interface with the Scrum core team and influence the project throughout the product development process. It is for the stakeholders that the project produces the collaborative benefits. The stakeholders can be any of the following. Customer. The customer is the individual or the organization that acquires the project's product, service, or other result. For any organization, depending on the project, there can be both internal customers, that is, within the same organization, or external customers, that is, outside of the organization. Users. Users are the individual or the organization that directly uses the project's product, service, or other result. Like customers, for any organization, there can be both internal and external users. Also, in some industries, customers and users may be the same. Sponsor. The sponsor is the individual or the organization that provides resources and support for the project. The sponsor is also the stakeholder to whom everyone is accountable in the end. At times, the same person or organization can play multiple stakeholder roles. For example, the sponsor and the customer may be the same. Next source of input is the accepted deliverables. Deliverables which meet the user story acceptance criteria are accepted by the product owner. The objective of a sprint is to create potentially shippable deliverables or product increments which meet the acceptance criteria defined by the customer and product owner. These are considered accepted deliverables that may be released to the customer if they so desire. These are considered accepted deliverables that may be released to the customer if they so desire. A list of accepted deliverables is maintained and updated after each sprint review meeting. If a deliverable does not meet the defined acceptance criteria, it is not considered accepted and will usually be carried forward into a subsequent sprint to rectify any issues. This is highly undesirable because the objective of every sprint is for the deliverables to meet the criteria for acceptance. Now that we have the inputs ready, let's see what tools are available to carry out the process. In the ship deliverables process, the main tools involved are the organizational deployment methods. The deployment mechanisms of each organization tend to be different based on their industry, target users, and positioning. Depending on the product being delivered, deployment can take place remotely or may involve the physical shipping or transition of an item. Because deployment tends to involve a high level of risk, organizations normally have well-defined and established deployment mechanisms with detailed processes in place to ensure compliance with any applicable standards and quality assurance measures. These might include sign-offs by specific management representatives, user approval mechanisms, and guidelines regarding minimum functionality for a release. Now that we have seen the main inputs and tools, it's time to check the outputs of the process. Working Deliverables Agreement. This is the output generated by the process Ship Deliverables. Deliverables that meet the acceptance criteria receive formal business sign-off and approval by the customer or sponsor. To get formal customer acceptance is critical for review recognition, and the responsibility for obtaining it will be defined by the company policies and is not necessarily the responsibility of the product owner. It is time to learn this second process in detail. Retrospect project. Is the process carried out? So as to understand the process, we need to know the inputs, tools, and outputs involved. Let's learn them one by one. The first source of input in this process is the Scrum core team. There are 3 core roles in Scrum that are ultimately responsible for meeting the project objectives. The core roles are the product owner, Scrum Master, and Scrum team. Together they are referred to as the Scrum core team. It is important to note that of these 3 roles, no role has authority over the others. Product owner. The product owner is the person responsible for maximizing business value for the project. He or she is responsible for articulating customer requirements and maintaining business justification for the project. The product owner represents the voice of the customer. Corresponding to a product owner role in a project, there could be a program product owner for a program or a portfolio product owner for a portfolio. Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is a facilitator who ensures that the Scrum team is provided with an environment conducive to completing the product's development successfully. The Scrum Master guides, facilitates, and teaches Scrum practices to everyone involved in the project, clears impediments for the team, and ensures that the Scrum processes are being followed. Note that the Scrum Master role is very different from the role played by the project manager in a traditional waterfall model of project management, in which the project manager works as a manager or leader for the project. The Scrum Master only works as a facilitator, and he or she is at the same hierarchical level as anyone else in the Scrum team. Any person from the Scrum team who learns how to facilitate Scrum projects can become the Scrum Master for a project or for a sprint. Corresponding to a Scrum Master role in a project, there could be a program Scrum Master for a program or a portfolio Scrum Master for a portfolio. Scrum team. The Scrum team is a group or team of people who are responsible for understanding the business requirements specified by the product owner, estimating user stories, and final creation of the project deliverables. Now, tools. The major tool involved to facilitate the process is the Retrospect Project Meeting. The Retrospect Project Meeting is a meeting to determine ways in which team collaboration and effectiveness can be improved in future projects. Positives, negatives, and potential opportunities for improvement are also discussed. This meeting is not time-boxed and may be conducted in person or in a virtual environment. Attendees include the project team, Chief Scrum Master, Chief Product Owner, and stakeholders. During the meeting, lessons learned are documented and participants look for opportunities to improve processes and address inefficiencies. Now that we have seen the inputs and tools involved, let's see the outputs generated. There are two outputs created. They are agreed actionable improvements and assigned action items and due dates. Agreed actionable improvements are the primary output of the retrospect project. They are a list of actionable items that the team has come up with to address problems and improve processes in order to enhance their performance in future sprints. In the case of assigned action items and due dates, once the agreed actionable improvements have been elaborated and refined, action items to implement the improvements may be considered by the Scrum team. Each action item will have a defined due date for completion. With this, the release phase is completed. Before we wind up, let's have a quick recap of what we've learned in the release phase. The release phase emphasizes delivering the accepted deliverables to the customer and identifying, documenting, and internalizing the lessons learned during the project. This phase consists of two processes, namely ship deliverables and retrospect project. Keep learning with Scrum. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thanks for watching.